I welcome all of you to this roundtable discussion, which has been organized by the Economic Times, ETCIO, and ETCFO in association with SAP Spend Connect. My name is Mukbil Ahmed. I am the executive editor at ETCIO and the host for this session. Now, first of all, I must express my gratitude that you all made it here to the event on time. And the topic for today's discussion is how do you future proof your enterprise with modern spend management? Now, before we move ahead, I would like to add a small background or context to this discussion that we have at hand. Uh, so we see that the past couple of years, have really had a very grave impact on enterprises, the business environment. In fact, I would go as far as to say that they have been particularly tough on enterprises. And particularly, if you were to look at the unprecedented circumstances which existed while the pandemic was on. So there were a lot of disruptions which happened. And this has really put enterprises and the business environment under a lot of stress. There have been disruptions such as labor shortages, geopolitical factors, for example, the war still ongoing, which had a deep impact. Now, in this increasingly competitive and highly uncertain environment that we see, I don't think it's going to evaporate anytime soon. There are rumors, there are thoughts. A lot of experts say that the world is headed towards recession. Now, if we were to keep all those factors in mind, I would definitely like to say that, there is a lot of consolidation which is happening across enterprises. So the first thing that every enterprise today looks at is how do you really try and control the cost side of running your operations, of running a business. Now, today we are going to talk about all of those aspects. How do you really thrive in such a competitive and unpredictable circumstances? There is a need to cut costs, optimize things, improve collaboration, and really ensure that every spend is really aligned to the business goals. Now, today we are going to discuss a lot of those aspects apart from how do you implement seamless spend management, how do you optimize costs, how do you integrate backend systems, pay processes, all of that. So we really believe that there is a need to relook at the spend management strategy of enterprises, and there couldn't have been a better time today than today because I see, a lineup of financial and technological experts, all of whom are very senior people. It's with great pleasure that that we start and deep dive into the discussions that we have at hand today. Before we start with a systematic round of discussions, I would really request all of you to give a brief introduction of yourselves, starting from my right.
Yeah. Good evening, all. Sanjeev Bhatia this side. I'm CFO for Sterlite Power.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Amit Agrawal. I'm the Group CFO of DCM Shriram Limited.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Umesh Mehta. I am the Group CIO for PI Industries. We are into agrochemicals manufacturing and distribution. Being in the industry for 30 plus years, delivering the promise of IT to business for the last 30 years. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Anupam Kumar. I'm a group controller with Vedanta. Vedanta, as you know, is a conglomerate with $20 billion of top line.
Hi, good evening. This is Ankit Maheshwari. I'm heading the Cash 24 Finance. It's a different type of company. It's a solving huge car market, converting unorganized market to organized market.
Good evening. Hi, this is Ajay Khanna here. I am working with V Commercial Vehicles as CIO and CISO. Been in the industry for about 27 odd years, same as Umesh, almost, and giving solutions, multiple solutions to the organization and to various organizations. Interesting topic, spend management. Let's see how it works out because this is a challenge with every organization, be it a technical challenge or a financial challenge.
Absolutely, totally agree with
Hi, good evening. I'm Karishma Singh. I head finance and revenue management verticals for Indian Hotels Company Limited, also known as the Taj Group of Hotels. And of course, I oversee all the brands as part of my portfolio and also focus on an integrated approach towards top line and bottom line both. Thank you.
you. Wonderful.
Hello, good evening all. I am Sanjay Chaudhary, CIO of Hamdard Laboratories Limited. As Umesh and Ajay has already told, I am also having experience of around 27 in the industry. So that's a little bit of profile. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Nitin Sharma. I'm from SAP. I can probably say that I'm part your industry, part uh, your supporting industry per se, because I come from my manufacturing with the manufacturing background. In fact, I started my life or professional career in Gurgaon itself. So this is my beginning of the professional career, when I started working with Maruti Suzuki here and handled various roles, including procurement, supply chain, and various other roles in terms of production and technology management. Now I live in Bangalore and I've been on the technology side for last 18 years.
Wonderful. So we have a thriving packed house in front of us, and let's immediately deep dive into the conversation at hand. Starting with you, Sanjeev. What do you think are some of the very pertinent demands being made on enterprises, particularly if we look at the very volatile situation that exists geopolitically and otherwise also?
So I can give you the perspective that post-COVID, which is again the inevitable pandemic which we have gone through, the top line and the bottom line both have actually gone the other way around. The demand has actually reduced, and due to cost pressures, the bottom line is also kind of shrinking. So the challenge which we all are facing is that how to ensure that the gross margins which we are earning in double digits earlier, which is now shrunk to single digit, how we can bring it back to double digit. And there are two ways we can achieve that. One, either increase the demand and get the revenue up, which to some extent gradually happens. But the second thing is the way this theme is there, that spend management. How can we look out for any and every opportunity wherever I have any opportunity to reduce the cost? Because now the industry is not just limited to India. We can go and procure material from any part of the globe. If I'm getting a aluminium from outside in US or in China or in Taiwan or anywhere else, the market is open. I can go grab it as long as I'm getting the raw material at a cheapest price. So this is what is the opportunity. Now we need to see that, okay, how can I reduce the shrinking gap between revenue and cost and enhance the gross margin. That is what is the challenge which we need to kind of answer to ourselves and increase the margins.
Right. So Sanjeev is essentially saying that enterprises today are seizing, or at least trying to seize, every opportunity that exists in terms of cutting down on costs. Would you agree, Amit?
Very true. No one can deny that part. See, one needs to make the organization sustainable, right? And therefore, it's evolving. The spend management also has to continuously evolve. And just to give you a brief background, DCM Shriram is a conglomerate with 8 businesses. And all of these 8 businesses have, they work as virtual companies. And very different. So we are into chemical, sugar, we are also into B2C, like Finesta. Now, therefore, it's a continuous exercise to see that how do we use quality data. So I'm adding the word quality to it. How do you analyze that data to get the right analytics to focus your decisions of improving the efficiency of spend and use the right tools. Obviously, the tools have to be simple and easy to use. So that is what we do continuously, and as Sanjeev mentioned, whether it is today using tools like Alibaba, you can procure around the world, and there are many other such tools. But today there are not just these larger tools. There are multiple exotic tools available, which can help improve your logistics efficiency, your sales expense efficiency, and therefore you need to continuously work on it, and which makes your organization sustainable. So that's my take.
Right. So, one thing that you spoke about was the quality of data.
Yeah.
I mean, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So what I mean by, so if you have to get the right analytics, and if you want to use technology for that, technology can work only when the data is of the right quality. When I say quality, I mean it has to be um, single, what do you call, single point of truth, right? It is captured electronically, right? And the data is captured electronically, it is processed electronically or using technology, and the output that comes also comes using technology.
True.
And therefore, that quality is important. If you have a manual component and in any leg, which is a critical leg, and even otherwise, at least the way we look at it, the quality of data gets impacted and your output gets impacted and your decision making therefore gets impacted. And the speed of decision making equally gets impacted. So,
Right, right. These are excellent points because, a lot of people say that, data is the new oil, has to be mined properly and in line with an enterprise's strategy and vision. So, in this respect, I totally agree with the points that you have made. I would now like to really ask Umesh for his thoughts on, Umesh, you come from a technology background. I've known you since years. So, when he's talking about the quality of data, and he said that, it's technology it is that is bringing the data, that is processing the data. So, what are the challenges that enterprises today have, when they're trying to leverage this data going forward?
So there are multiple challenges. Okay, so all these years we've been working on the enterprise IT systems. Okay, and what he's talking about is that okay, the manufacturing also belongs to the manufacturing company. So now with Industry 4.0, you call it 5.0, people are talking about integrating OT/IT networks, where they pull data from OT networks directly and feeding into these systems, the SAPs of the world directly, rather than somebody noting it down on a log sheet and entering okay those error things. So these are some of the challenges. Connecting OT/IT network itself is a big challenge for IT professionals because you always have a threat from the adversaries because IT that's तो ठीक था, but then something goes wrong with the OT equipment. So chemical plants like us or their plants, so somebody can play havoc with that. So one has to be very careful while connecting this OT and IT network. So security is very important. So we need to have a proper, I would say, an architecture on security when you are connecting, putting some diodes, one-way traffic, all those things are there. And then the other challenge is also on, I would say, the change management. You go to plant and you tell them that we want to automate, they will not let you automate. Okay, because all the years they've been doing manual entry, and all of a sudden, if the data shows that things were not correct in the past, so they don't open people, so they keep the information with them. Okay, so that's a very big challenge on the change management side. People still don't believe that okay, though COVID actually helped us in increasing the digitalization pace, where because in our case, I can tell you, our vision is that we should have nobody in the plant and the plants running remotely without the manpower. Okay, and because all the systems are automated, we have DCS systems, SCADA systems, all the manufacturing is being monitored by these systems. So why don't we integrate these two systems with our enterprise IT system, which is SAP, pulling data directly from the OT systems and create process order, complete order, weighing, whatever is coming out of it. So these are, I think, two or three challenges. One on the information security. The major one is the culture.
Right,
So,
right.
that is what.
Wonderful points coming from you, Umesh. And really going back to Amit, I think that quality of data, point that you have raised before, is also to do with the fact that a lot of data is there, but usually it exists in silos where systems are not talking to each other, which leads to a lot of inefficiencies creeping into the system and they're not streamlined. I think those are very valuable points uh, coming from both of you. Now, really going to Anupam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Anupam, my question to you is, you know, uh, coming closer to the topic at hand, is what are the primary trends that you are noticing, locally as well as globally, as far as spend management is concerned?
Yeah, so I think cost metamorphosis is something that we are seeing. The cost is very tricky and it has a tendency to change color and come back to you. You think you have reduced cost in one direction, you reduce it in one particular area, and it comes back in some other form or color, right? For a company like ours, we've grown inorganically over the years. I think we implemented SAP some 28, 27 years ago. So, uh, to keep track of what is the true color of cost, someone mentioned about, I think it was Amit who mentioned about, what is the true source of data, what is the true cost coming in. The trends that we are seeing is it's very difficult to keep like comparable costs together to be able to make meaningful decisions. The second I think I'm seeing is I think people don't have patience any longer to wait for homogenized systems. There's a very immediate need to merge various systems to come together. And, we run, I think we have some 70 different legal entities, run 8 different instances of SAP. So it's not one single instance of SAP. And in our scale and size of things, to think of we'll stop everything to come to a common platform, common instance of SAP is never going to happen, right? We've tried it multiple times. So I think the need of the hour is to look at solutions that help us give that information very quickly rather than wait for coming onto a common platform and invest more cost and effort into that. So there has to be out of the box thinking, giving us solutions which can help pull all the data together in a common platform, right? So goes back to points on dashboarding, a lot of tools out there, but something that can work and scale and size of, like with SAP, because that's really our core database. I think the third area is that with pandemic and everything, everyone's expectation is that now procurement, contracting, payment processing, all this information should come a lot faster, and not get stuck in invoicing that's kind of coming in, 2-3 months lag. And what we look for is touchless processing, right? Now GST regime has enabled that. You have IRN codes, you have QR codes on invoices. So we look for systems that can basically pick up that information digitally, and there's no more keying in information, entry of data. It should just, every invoice has a unique ID, so to say. At least all the GST invoices do. And can we, and if you operate in the Indian scenario, can we at least using that simplify our processing time? Because the sooner you get data, the faster you're able to make decisions around what's going wrong, where we can probably take corrective action. So those are the 3 points I wanted to mention.
Wonderful, great points coming from you. Now, I would like to go on to Ankit. So, Ankit, as he has already spoken about, Anupam, that a lot of things are happening. So, do you think as organizations grow, do you think procurement and SCM also needs to keep pace with the changes that are happening?
I do agree with this.
Particularly keeping in mind that the company that you represent is a digital native and a very forward-looking company.
Yes, I do agree with this. But in spend management, I would say 4 important thing is important for any company. One comes with like a first is I will say planning, then comes with like an end-to-end execution, and then comes with the real-time data, and then comes fourth one is the insights. And then all goes to planning because it's a flywheel. When you look from insight, then go to planning. In our company, like Cash 24, we started 7 years back, different mindset, different problem. Probably we were not aware about how unit economics will work at that point of time because starting with new idea, maybe a probably high level idea will be there, but when you will go deeper, then you decide where unit economics will go. So important aspect planning because whenever you need to first align in your mindset what return you want, what expense you want to do. First of all, you need to be very clear at that front because sometimes if you will not do great planning, you will be a penny wise pound foolish. It can be your growth lever, but you are not ready to do that expense. Sometimes you are doing that expense, but it's not required for growth. So planning is important aspect, and in planning, digital end-to-end system is playing very important role. We as a Cash 24 implemented plan, which is helping me to plan better, long-range plan, short-range plan, budgeting and all. And then comes end-to-end execution, be it supply chain, negotiate with vendor, what should be the pricing, budget versus actual, in terms of all control, IP for like a listed company, and then comes all vendor processing, then comes all reconciliation and all. So practically everywhere nowadays, digital things are coming in picture and solving real time processing. It's like now people doesn't need to do all these things, and at the same time, when you are doing all these things, comes insights also in picture because when you are doing end-to-end planning through digital mode, end-to-end automation processing through digital mode, and then real-time data will come, which Anil also mentioned. Real-time data will help you to build your insights, take a right decision at right point of time. I used to discuss in my company practically some year back we were closing month end by after like a 10 day of the month end. Now with the whole automation which we guys did in last couple of years, we guys are closing 4th or 5th of every month. Maybe probably after 1 year we will close in the first, and then we will get to know real time data so that we can take a decision. Otherwise, if you are doing all reconciliation manually, then you will do postmortem. You can't do anything, whatever happens, and you are doing reconciliation, but you can't figure out insights because if team is focusing on the data building, then you can't keep insights. And then comes one more time is the planning because you have insights, all things are digital, real time, then you can do planning better. So all are the four flywheel, I will say, comes in a picture when you are doing spend management.
Right. I think it's really heartening to know that, such drastic cuts have been made in the turnaround time as far as, something that you were talking about. It's really great. And I think the digitalization has had a role, tremendous role, in fact, to play in that. My question to you, sir, is, something that has been alluded to before as well. What is the role that digitalization can really play as far as this spend management function is concerned?
See, digitalization has a very important role, definitely for sure. But having said that, I've heard about a lot being talked about. We talk about that manual entry of manual data punching in. It cannot be avoided, and it will never get avoided, come what may. You will have people entering data, punching data manually, because even a barcode generation, somebody has to punch in the data. If it is a master data input, somebody has to punch in the data. So you cannot get away from manual entries of data. Digitalization is important because the opportunities are immense. Opportunities to handle spend management, expense management are huge. And I think you cannot say that any organization would have completed its journey of spend management or expense management. Uh, Having said that, the new age techniques and tools that are coming in, these are definitely going to be helpful for integrating the entire approach from a spend to a payout from that perspective. Uh, Also looking at the other side of it, if you look at today, the cost of doing business has gone multi-folds. It has increased drastically. It is not what it used to be earlier. We thought that digitization will bring in happiness, it will reduce the cost of operations, and whole life will be wonderful. So we have a security challenge. Okay, there's layers of security which have come in. and no matter what you do, you're never secure. The cost goes in over there.
That's the irony.
That's the irony. And you're never secure. You will never be secure because you're always in threat, always in fear. So your cost has gone up from a business perspective. Your profits probably, you're trying to manage your profits to be at the same level, but maybe it is getting impacted. You're running operations running, as you talked about, closing within a short period of time. Yes, that has helped out, and probably digitization has helped that out. Another fact, a lot of people are moving on to the cloud. So cloud is another story altogether. The spend management on cloud is a unique challenge, and you have to have a CFO, a cloud financial officer to manage it specifically, because that's again going to be a challenge for most organizations who do not see end to end how they're going to plan this entire journey of.
This is for the first time I'm coming across this expansion of CFO. Cloud financial officer.
That's a terminology which I had set in because I see that that's a challenge which is going to come in, and because of the complexity of cloud related expenses that are going to come in. Another thing, organizations wide, whichever organization talk about digitization and all, you will always have an Excel gallery. Finance people sitting and doing Excel crunching. Okay, it will never go out. It always is their desktop SAP systems, desktop ERP systems, they will still remain. So that's where things are. Yes, technology will definitely help up in terms of streamlining. Analytics is going to be playing a major role. It is already doing that. It is already helping out organizations to understand their expenses, where they are spending more, where they need to realign. Also, the kind of processes that organizations have been working on, these processes have probably need to be taken a relook again, because all along we have been focusing on business processes, operational processes. The financial processes need to be realigned, because there are enough controls that have been built up on these, which probably are becoming impediment in terms of doing business operations. The challenges or channels of information of purchase or procurement are immense today. You're no longer one or two channels. Today you see an opportunity happening in Amazon and you want to buy it, you cannot buy it. So can you do something on that? Can you change your entire purchasing channels differently, have a different approach, make it leaner, make it faster, make it resilient? So that's another thing which will probably help organizations in terms of managing their spends. So from an opportunity perspective, are going to be immense opportunities of integration, of digitization. It will never end. We as an organization have end-to-end integration of our manufacturing shop floor information coming in directly to our ERP systems, integrating. Our shop floor execution systems are ERP-based, SAP-based, and manufacturing execution systems. And these have been there in the last 7-8 years. We have deployed immense shop floor execution systems which basically integrate this entire thing. Manual dependency definitely is going to be there, it will never end. We also see that, and that will also be a challenge, because a mistake on a manual entry in a barcode generation system probably will trigger far more catastrophic results. So controls and proper sanitization of information is going to be required definitely at all ends. You look at who enters this data, what is the qualification of the person who is entering this data? Is he really that qualified, who has understanding of what data has to be put in, how it has to be put in? So that you need to change that entire dynamics in terms of awareness, education at all layers of the organization. That's
right.
So
You made two very pertinent points. Of course, technology is and has been an enabler of several business processes. But however, this point that you raised about, the community is still entangled in a web of Excel sheets. That is something that I come across every time, despite there being, tools and solutions and systems in place. I think that somewhere, connects to the change management point that was made earlier, that eventually the adoption of technology or adoption of anything is basically an aspect of culture. Have you built the culture which is a prerequisite for an adoption of something like that? So wonderful points coming from you. Now, Karishma, I really want to go to you for a little more pointed question, which is about, according to your own understanding, what do you think are the challenges that enterprises today face, particularly with respect to something like supply chain management? And we have seen that there have been disruptions galore. And what can be done to really overcome them?
So I'll kind of just go back a few years to the pandemic, where our entire industry, which was actually doing so well up until 2019, suddenly saw the impact of the pandemic hit us to such an extent that in India, the hospitality industry lost 90% of its top line in 2019-20.
True,
So
true,
we
true.
were literally scraping, what is called the bottom.
Worst hit,
And
I would say.
yes, the worst hit.
Aviation and tourism
Absolutely.
and hospitality.
Yes. So we were at the deep end of the pandemic, and I think for us the learnings were really, really harsh, but also lessons of a lifetime. So we were literally scraping the bottom. The top line is completely gone, and typically our industry is very high on fixed cost. It's low on variable cost. So we had to rethink the entire paradigm as far as costs go. And our MD at that time came up with a 5 point strategy called Reset 2020, in which two very important pillars were effective asset management and thrift and financial prudence. And in that, this questioning the entire fixed cost, bringing down that structure was a key part that all of us really focused on. One was, of course, to try and bring back the top line. The other was the entire cost structure. So we had to rethink our fixed costs, which was a very different journey. Again, in hospitality, the main fixed cost is people, right? So that is your biggest fixed cost when in terms of a running operation, apart from the building the infrastructure, which is a hotel or an asset, etc. To run the asset, it's primarily people, and then it's raw materials like food cost. Those are the other big costs, and there's heat, light, power. So breaking down these running fixed costs was like a key thing. So one obviously looked at things like multi-skilling people, looking at flexibility of workforce. So changing the paradigm of the working population in hotels, that was one key part. And to address your question about supply chain, I think this really forced us to go back and look at the lens, look down two routes. One is to look at more domestic suppliers, and the other was the complete sustainability route. So looking at those long-term sustainable things that come, from local sourcing as opposed to getting fancy ingredients and going back to simple concepts and putting them sort of out there. Now, in our industry, I was chatting with some colleagues earlier. Because we are so people dependent, and also because our properties are in different geographic locations, etc., it's very difficult to standardize a fixed set of suppliers or to have a fixed supply chain. And sometimes even our own vendors are from a very unorganized sector. So it's difficult to put everyone on some fancy platform. So
True.
the point that my colleague here made on the right, so we are very much that hybrid version of a platform plus an Excel sheet, plus there's a little bit of stuff that happens, that doesn't get captured by electronic systems. So for us, the biggest challenge as far as supply chain goes was to integrate all of that and get that onto a platform where we move into digitization and remote supply chain management. So for us, that was the big thing in terms of rethinking the entire supply chain. We had people who were sitting, typically our business model is on site. Because if you're running a hotel, you need to be on site. You need to be checking what's coming in, etc.
True,
And
true.
then to completely take that offline. So I would say in the supply chain journey, the digitization, technology, and also very high dependence on real-time data. That
True.
was the big challenge. And now we are also moving towards things like just-in-time inventory. So we only get what we need at that point in time. That's really helped to control costs.
Right. So, just an offshoot of your observations and remarks, did you ever imagine that something like this would happen, say, like 3, 4 years back?
No, not at all. We were thinking that, travel is going to hit the next level. We had a very ambitious vision for 2020, 2022, as it was called Aspiration 22, and then we had to go back and rethink the paradigm. But the good news is that our industry has seen a what we call a V-shaped recovery. So actually, the demand levels in the last 4 months, they've shot up, and we just finished November. November was a fabulous month. Even our industry reports are showing all-time high occupancies, all-time high average rates. So we've kind of, I would say it's been a period of resurgence the last couple of months. We bounced back like never before.
And going back to another point that you made about, making your system sustainable, how are you planning to do that, or what are the steps that you've taken in that direction?
So one of the things we are doing is a very strong focus on environmental sustainability. Reducing dependence on maybe, if I may call it, fossil fuels, etc. So we are looking at, investing in solar panels, creating our own what we call water bottling facilities, EV charging stations in some of our properties. So there is this initiative which was rolled out earlier this year called Pathya, and that is the long-term sustainability program that we're following.
Wonderful. Exceedingly interesting points coming, and we are really glad that of the sustainability measures that you've undertaken, which I think, and we would all agree on that it would make the world a much better place to inhabit. Now, going on to Sanjay. So, Sanjay, in such a volatile situation, what do you think are some of the technology imperatives that enterprises must deal with today in order to uh, overall, as well as in the context of the topic that we have today, which is spend management?
Uh, See, if you talk about the overall as a bouquet of what kind of IT investment should do, I think that's the question you have. So,
With particular emphasis on.
yeah, particular emphasis, I will come on to that.
Yes,
Particular
yes.
about the spend
Correct.
management. But if you talk about right now in present scenario, the investment, as you know, it's totally digitization is. And if I talk about my organization as of now, since last 2 years after the pandemic, and pandemic actually has forced us to go for the digitization and to, just for example, we put our all medicine on the e-commerce platform. So that is one of the biggest change in the Hamdard laboratories, which is a 107 years old, and the culture, you know how it's
Of course,
not
it
that
is one
kind
of the
culture.
leading.
So to move that and to have a concept like, and to give the concept, okay, yeah, we can sell it at the online platforms as well, and all online marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart, and all these Farm Easy, 1MG, all these things. So now, after the pandemic, we have moved and we have selected this, and then the partner has been selected, and these steps have been taken, and now this is one of the biggest, you can say, earnings have been coming up from these platforms, apart from the normal primary distribution and the secondary distribution. So digitization is the actual necessity now. Earlier it was a luxury, but now it's a necessity. You have to have those digitization in place, whether in terms of OT or IoT, or whether you are doing some RPA implementation for some mundane jobs in the finance side, or just like for the selling part, like if you are implementing some Salesforce automation tools, or which is now again a necessity. Earlier it was in previous years, around 8-9 years, it was a luxury that you are providing mobiles to the Salesforce team. No, how can we provide all the teams around 200? Like we have around 500 Salesforce all over the India. So that policy needs to be implemented. Okay, we will provide the mobile devices because they can't purchase. So we will have a uniform policy. We will have a MDM to be implemented on the mobile device, so the partition can be created. So all these things have been done now. So it was a necessity now. It is not that you have to have these things in place, and the change has to done in the organization if they want to sustain in the market. So that is the overall concept right now. That is your first part is asked. If I come to the specific from the spend management point, first point should be like, if obviously suppliers will be linked to this, right? To suppliers in our scenarios, and even in the Indian culture, there are very small shops. they have in the old Delhi or in the other Delhi. So they don't have that proper setup even,
Exactly.
right? To integrate these type of tools. They
Exactly.
won't agree with you, right? They won't agree with who will work on that tool. That is the first question they will ask us. Will you provide the manpower or resource to work on that tool? That is the first question. So many vendors, so many suppliers. Will the company will bear that burden? I don't think so. So that is the first question. They are not going to invest. The second thing, are you going to provide them the tool as well? Because some of them will not be utilizing their tools as well, right? It's like the devices I'm talking about, whether it is laptop or desktop. Like in our scenario, we have around 500 plus stockists all over India. So that so the devices have been provided by us in order that they work on our platform, on the retail software, which is a bottery software, right? Which is the number one software in India right now. So that is the thing. These are the challenges will come if I talk about the spend management software, so that the vendors or the suppliers should work on us. So it is just like the sales side. We are forcing them to work on that particular software. Then they will ask us, but I will gain if I work on this software. Simple as that. If I don't gain anything, and I will not work.
If I may just add, you have to dumb down the software. That's what it is. If you really want to penetrate the Indian market, that's what I would
Right,
say.
right. I'm really happy that you guys, really brought these very pertinent, insightful, and fascinating questions, and they will provide a lot of ammunition to my friend Nitin sitting here, who has been laboriously taking down points. I think he will have a field day now. Nitin, your turn.
So what is it you would like me to respond to? But I think
Whatever suits your.
probably I think let's do this way. A few points is what I will address. Right away. I mean, a viewpoint I will rather say, and maybe what I will, with or your permission, what I will do is in the end I will maybe take 5-6 minutes just to give in which direction we are evolving. See, we if you look at technology is an enabler, right? And that is how we are also evolving with you as you go along and evolve your businesses, right? As many of you have said, right? The necessity is the mother of invention. So actually the pandemic is a push for digitization per se, right? And I also remember I have been in technology field now for quite some time. And I feel that, that is how people have treated investment in technologies per se. But now, let me tell you, that technology is no longer even, forget necessity part, you understand? It's not even operational, it is strategic in nature. The companies are going to be made based on the way you are able to leverage technology. So that's a good part of it. Of course, it will need investment, and even in this environment, there is a fight for the penny. The share of your wallet. What kind of investment you are going to be making in technology. But this is a given that technology is going to be now at a strategic lever, not even an operational lever. You don't have to use technology just to keep lights on or to meet your statutory obligation. But if you are to take lead on any of these areas, we are talking about spend management per se, but any of area, the technological spend will have to be there. So that is, I think, the given part. Another good thing which you talked about is, many people talk about cloud nowadays, and that is where the technology trend is. See, unfortunately, I would rather say, the change of pace in technological environment is huge. And that's what we as an SAP, which is trying to provide the solutions across spectrum, is struggling with, right? Because every day there are going to be some different technologies altogether. So I might have built something, and then you say that maybe you have built something, but there is a now better technology which has just come in, right? Like you just mentioned those, air cranes mentioned, which reduce your time of installation or infrastructure development from 9 months to 1 month's time. Similarly, there are things like this, and some of these decisions are impacting in a way. If I can just borrow from Krishna, from your this thing. So you had done up a property with a particular type of interiors, and now you say that this interior is actually out of fashion. It's not going to be suitable, but you can't take out that hotel, just like that. So that's the challenge with which we are struggling with. I mean, we are trying to solve that, address that, because we have to also adopt the new technologies so that we can evolve and supplement you or support you in some of the functions which you asked for. I think there was a lot of mention, Umesh, you talked about security part of it, and that's really, really important. In fact, if you ask us, since we are moving towards cloud, the security is becoming, is one of the big investment area for us, and we have spent huge amount of effort in that direction. So sometimes you might see, okay, there is no visible changes in terms of the functionality which is coming up, but there is quite a bit which is going behind the security, because that is paramount. For you it might be a stoppage of a function. For me, it will kill my business at all, right? And this was a question people used to ask earlier. 5 years back, people were asked, why should I go to cloud? I have my own security here. But I think now it is well established. Keeping money in your own home, the safe in your own home versus keeping in a bank vault, which one is more safe, and that is the bank vault, and that is what the cloud does for you. So now people move to cloud, not in spite of security, but because of security, they want to move on to the cloud, because we will put into consideration those areas. So that is one major part of it, which we take very, very seriously, and there is huge amount of continuous investment which goes into this. Another, I think, point which was touched upon is in terms of the simplicity part, and that's another area which we are trying to address, try to make systems as simple as is possible, and I'll talk about some of it, the examples which are happening right now, but a few things like we are trying to work in a year and get into a scenario where you probably don't have to enter any data. It's keyboard-less operation which we want to do, right? But we'll realize it's a journey sometime. Or some of the technological side, no code or low code kind of solutions which come up, so that you can set up your things, or maybe the integration part of it, which can be done in a more effective manner rather than graphical manner, rather than writing the codes of it. So we are trying to work on that simplicity part. Another extremely important part is sustainability, and we do believe that in the spend management area, if your procurement value chain is not sustainable, you will not be able to meet whatever your organization's aspirations are towards your sustainability goals. And it is this, and this is why we are coming out with those solutions. And good part is many of the solutions which we have already, you can actually build on those sustainability score into your sourcing processes, for example, into your supplier onboarding processes. Those are some of the things which you can build upon that right now.
In the interest of time, we will really need to wrap this up. In case there is some brief remark or parting remark coming from any of the panelists, Sanjeev, anything? 30 seconds.
So I think it's a kind of quite interactive, and again, the focus is really on reduction of cost, data, artificial intelligence. So this is what is there. So that is what I can say, that this workshop actually worked in that direction.
Very cutting edge.
I would say great discussion with a lot of diverse set of people. I think your choice of panelists was very good, because we got insight not just from the
India is the
CFOs.
land of diversity.
Yeah.
It celebrates.
I think very interesting discussions. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So with these words, we really come to the end of this discussion, which has been largely wholesome, with a lot of diverse perspectives, as Amit rightly pointed out, and a lot of key insights from industry practitioners. I would really want to thank all of you for making time today. It's been a real pleasure interacting with all of you.